I am wearing my Beauty and the Beast sweater because that is the most romantic thing that I own. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am taking a kind of a get to know the romance reader book tag, but more so of a romance books, finding out more about the kind of stuff that I like in romance books, all that kind of a genre. I found these questions originally on Twitter on the account Poppy Hawks. There are 25 questions in here, all about the kind of romance books that I like to read, the kind of romance books that I don't like to read, some of my favorite authors. Let's take a look at them because with 25 questions, this is going to take some time. Question 1, what is the first romance you remember reading? When I was like 12 or 13 or so, I definitely remember reading Always the Bridesmaid by Sarah Webb. It was one of my favorite books when I was growing up, mainly because it was the first adult book that I had ever read. It was the first kind of contemporary romance I'd ever read. It was a really good way to dip my toes into the genre because it's an Irish author. I really understood a lot of the references that were being made. It also talked about like a children's TV program that was on in Ireland when I was growing up. I felt like that kind of made the transition from childhood reading to adult reading a lot smoother because I had that childhood reference in the book that I could still kind of go back to and say I know what this was about. But it's also the first time that I heard what a condom was. What is the last romance that you've read? I just the other night finished The Roommate by Rosie Danan and it is steamy. There's a scene about halfway through this book that I think has overtaken The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren as one of my favorite steamy romance scenes. What is the romance you are most likely to recommend to a newbie? So I would kind of go for a couple of authors here rather than the books themselves. So I would definitely recommend Christina Lauren because they have such a huge back catalogue with so many different genres, so many different tropes, so many different settings and storylines that there is definitely going to be at least one that you will enjoy. I'm also going to recommend Portia McIntosh. I've never had a bad experience with any of her books. I'm also going to recommend Lindsay Kelk. Same, I've never had any bad experiences with her books. I'm also going to recommend Isabel Broom, who doesn't just write romance fiction, but she also puts travel into that. So every single one of her books is set in a different location, which is something we definitely need while we can't travel during a pandemic. What is the romance you are most likely to recommend to another romance reader? So I am again going to say Christina Lauren, and here I'm going to say The Unhoneymooners because I have recommended that to at least 3 people already so far, and I am definitely trying to get everybody that I know to read it. What is an underrated romance book that you think everybody should read? So again, I'm going to go for an author here, and that is Lindsay James. I have read all bar one of her books so far, and I'm definitely going to have to go and pick that one back up. But she's got a new one coming out in April, which sounds fantastic. But that's not even my favorite one of hers. My favorite of hers is actually like a duology about a girl called Cleo who has broken her leg in a car accident and is kind of going through a recuperation, but also getting her self-confidence back and going back to some of the activities that she used to love before all of her confidence broke apart and before she had the accident. I utterly love that one, and not just because the romance interest is called Scott Robinson. What is an overrated romance that you wish people would stop talking about? And I am so sorry to say this one because I know so many people love it, but the Confessions of a Shopaholic series. I don't know if there's a proper name for that series, but that's the first book in it by Sophie Kinsella. I tried the first one of them. I got it in a charity shop in the UK for like £2, and I thought, okay, if I don't hate it, cool, I can read the rest. If I do hate it, it's just £2 out of my budget. I'm not gonna cry over that. But it was so bad. Oh my god, it was awful. I just could not get past this like 24, 25, 26-year-old who had absolutely no concept of money, and it basically burned a hole in every single pocket she put it into. And I felt like she never really learned a lesson throughout the book, that it was just people who came to be like her knight in shining armor and saved the day for her, rather than her learning about the responsibility of a job, learning about what it is to save money, learning about how to act responsibly with your money. I could not take that book. Who is an author by author? For me, it is Lindsay Kelk. I would read The Phone Book if she brought that out. Who is an author that you used to love that you have abandoned? And again, it's going to be Sophie Kinsella. So I have had some really up and down situations with her. In my last book on Haul, I talked about one of the books that I read of hers recently that I really didn't enjoy, but also the Shopaholic series just kind of put the nail in the coffin for me. I think it's time for me to say goodbye to Sophie Kinsella, basically. What is your favourite trope? So I love so many different tropes, but I think my absolute top of the pile favourite one has got to be fake dating. There's just something about seeing them not hate each other, but not really like love each other at the start of the book, and then as their relationship progresses, even if it's a fake relationship, you see sometimes these like real feelings coming into the situation, and I love watching that thaw throughout the whole book. What is a book that you didn't like even though it has your favorite trope? I know I said the fake dating is my jam, but Farrah McFarlane's If I Never Met You just did not hit the mark for me at all. And it's not because of the fake dating, even though I did have some issues with that in that it takes a really long time for them to actually set up the fake dating. For me, it was other situations in the book, other aspects of the storytelling, other things that should have been paid attention to but weren't. Just didn't hit for me. What is the best book with your favourite trope? And for this one, again, The Unhoneymooners. I take a shot as to how many times I've said The Unhoneymooners in this video. I absolutely adored watching Ethan and Olive, who genuinely do not like each other at the start of this book even, and then they have to do the fake dating trope, and it's an enemies to lovers trope, and it all put together into one, and it's really steamy. It balances all of those perfectly, and it is such a great story. It was the first Christina Lauren book that I had ever read, and it was such a great introduction to their writing. What is your most hated trope? I cannot stand miscommunication. I do not. I hate miscommunication. I hate when you get to the end of the book and there's that third act breakup that always happens, and you're just, this could have very easily been avoided if somebody had picked up their phone, or this could have very easily been avoided if somebody has sat the other person down and said, this is what's happening. Every time that I see it happen, I kind of do roll my eyes a little bit. What is a book that you liked, even though it has a trope that you didn't like in it? Okay, so I haven't read it yet, but it is on my TBR. I've heard that Roomies by Christina Lauren has got a kind of a miscommunication trope in it and has got issues with miscommunication in it. So I'm really hoping that despite all of that, the name Christina Lauren is going to be strong enough to carry it through. Who is your problematic fave? I actually cannot think of an answer to this one. I've had a really good thought about it throughout all of the books that I have read. I guess kind of slightly problematic is Ethan from The Unhoneymooners, but even then, not very problematic at all. Okay, he does stand by his brother when his brother cheats on his wife, but other than that, I really can't think of any problematic faves that I genuinely have. So I think I'm going to have to leave that question with a really stupid, shitty answer. What is a book that everybody loved that is leaving you scratching your head? And for this one, it is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I've mentioned this book a couple of times here already, but it was such a disappointment for me, mainly because of how the issue of infertility and wanting to have children but not being able to is tackled in this book. It felt like the ending was such a kick in the teeth for anybody who does struggle with infertility issues and who is struggling to have children and who is struggling to start a family. It was such a kick in the teeth for these people. Who is your favourite Romancelandia person to follow on Twitter? Now, I am very new to the romance genre, so I don't actually know what Romancelandia is, but I can tell you who some of my favourite people on the romance genre to follow are. I really like Novelty Corner, who is a booktuber from Australia who reads quite a lot of romance fiction. I really like Heather from Bookables, who is like me, quite new to the romance genre and reads quite a lot of contemporary romance, just like I do. Haley in Bookland seems to like quite a lot of romance fiction. Those kind of people are the ones that I like to follow for updates, what to read, additions to my TBR, that kind of a thing. Okay, so the next question is a person or a place that you go to for your romance book recommendations. And again, all of the people that I have just said there, but also Beautifully Bookish Bethany has a really great romance selection on her YouTube channel. But in general, I go to a lot of romance channels on BookTube. I go to a lot of, there's a romance books hashtag on Twitter that I kind of follow pretty intently to see what are some updates that are coming in the genre, what are some new books that are coming out, what are some book reviews of stuff that's already out that I can take a look at. I would kind of look around there quite a lot. What book has a character that reminds you of yourself? And I have mentioned this series again so many times, but Angela Clark from the iHeart series by Lindsay Kelk is somebody who definitely reminds me about myself in so many ways. Not just because she has left her home country, not just because we both kind of worked in the media, but when we left our home country to go to new places, we found love while we were there. Also, we're both slightly disastrous human beings. What is a romance book cover that you love? And I am going to shout out a publishing house here rather than just one book. I really love what One More Chapter does with their books. They make the cover so pretty and so bright and so colourful and eye-catching. One of my favourite ones in this is the Summer Island and Christmas Island series from Natalie Norman that looks so Nordic. I know hygge is a Danish concept, but if there's any kind of a Norwegian equivalent to that, that is what those book covers are. What is a book that you've reread more than twice? And you cannot stay away from your first time, can you? So I have gone back to Always a Bridesmaid by Sarah Webb, I think about 3 or 4 times by now, but it is due another reread very soon because I'm starting to forget what the kind of intricate details of the book are about, and it's definitely time for me to go back and read it again. What is your best romance audiobook? I absolutely loved The Flat Year by Beth O'Leary as an audiobook. The narrators are fantastic in it. It is perfectly told by both of them, and it's such a brilliant story that just truly comes to life when you're reading it as an audiobook, as well as when you're reading it in the print version, which I have also done. What is your favorite romance or rom-com movie? I have the most special place in my heart for You've Got Mail. Even though the ending can be a little bit sketch and I don't think you should get into a relationship with someone who has purposefully put you out of business, there's nothing like New York in the Fall, is there? Who is your favorite romance heroine? I don't know if this counts. I think it kind of counts because it's a YA romance, but I have such a soft spot in my heart for Lara Jean from the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series. I genuinely want her to be my best friend. I want to go to her house and have her greet me at the door with a plate of cookies that she's just baked, and then we sit together and discuss boys and books and all of that kind of thing. Genuinely, I think if I met Lara Jean, we could be the best of friends. Who is your favorite romance hero? And even though I have just finished it, I think I'm going to go with Josh from The Roommate by Rosie Danan. I really loved reading him. He is, okay, let's put this out there. Josh works as an adult entertainer, but I loved how he kind of shone a light on what it's actually like to work in the adult entertainment industry, and that it's not just you come on set, you take your clothes off, you bang a load of women, and then you go home. He kind of dealt with what it's like when you're off the camera. Also, Josh was such a lovely person to Cara. As soon as they met each other, right the whole way through the book, that genuinely, I have such a crush on him. And finally, what is your all-time favorite romance? I don't know if this means the book, I don't know if this means the couple, but let's go with the couple. And my favorite romance couple of all time, and this is another YA, is Mia and Michael from The Princess Diaries. Mia and Michael were actually my very first ship, back before shipping just meant getting stuff from Amazon sent to your house. I absolutely adore the two of them together. And I know that they go through quite a lot of rocky patches, and I know that they go through quite a lot of stuff, but the dynamic in their relationship, while it's a teenage relationship and while it's not always perfect, it was so good to see. That is a little bit more about me as a romance reader, the stuff that kind of gets me going and the stuff that is a bit of a turn off for me. What are your turn-ons and turn-offs to a romance book? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.